Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and once again it is time for my client Garrett's vlogs, and uh, let's go ahead and talk about what's going on with this bench here. This is again some of the concerns I have, and I always tell guys we cannot be emotionally invested in lifts. And it's when he got over to his bench, he's like, I touch and go to all of it, and this is again the problem. If we have someone who we're struggling to bench, right, the bench is their worst lift, and we only get this one real plus set every week to push our limit on it, then volume work, we basically, how do I put it, we almost waste a week of training, right? It's almost wasted in the sense that it doesn't give us a metric of your real strength. We're skipping the part of the movement to where we get the most mechanical tension and stress on the pectorals. And using the pecs to drive it from a dead stop off the chest. So someone who is struggling to build their bench, particularly with a chest weakness, it's literally the worst thing he could have done. And here's the thing that we have to think about, and I always remind people, this is why we have to avoid emotional attachments to these lifts, because they'll create self-fulfilling prophecies. In other words, if you get psyched up, you have emotional investment or whatever in your set sometimes on an exercise, and you use something that's going to be bad form, you're concerned that the lift isn't going up, right? So then you get emotionally invested in that way, and then what happens? You create a self-fulfilling prophecy, and you make mistakes that are going to cause you to gain slower on it, right? Well, that's not a good thing, and that's exactly what's happening a bit with his bench. We really need the extra focus in it. And so I'm even taking some focus away from his overhead press day just to make sure that we're getting that bench work in, right? So that he can recover, because I feel like, again, shoulder recovery is an issue here. And it goes to show that with some people, and I always explain this, that not everyone will get carryover from the overhead press to their bench, because his overhead press climbs way faster than his bench. His delts are bigger than his chest. Hey, now if you're someone who has really weak delts, it might be the case. But it's pecs limiting him, and then we end up being, a bit fatigued. So again, we're a little concerned with Garrett's bench. Everything else, though, he's doing phenomenal. Squatting this week, PRs. Press was pretty much the same, not really a true PR, I believe. Deadlift we PR'd. So, his lower body's coming up, but the chest is lagging. And again, we may need to rearrange the programming, and I'm going to need him to focus on not being emotionally connected on that plus set. Because here's what happens again. We get so invested in it that we will do whatever it takes to try to get whatever numbers we think we should get. And we could end up with an inferior training stimulus. Okay? This is not how we get ahead. We have to learn to be focused. Right? We have to learn to be calm so that we can perform these things correctly. And we see the same thing with his deadlift. We've been working on cleaning up that arm bend, and then he got rid of it better this week. He's like, wow, I felt even stronger. And it's like, of course. Because when our arms bend, we get loose and we jerk the weight off the floor. We don't create as much power if you end up letting your arm bend. So what's his training look like? As you guys can see, it's pretty consistent. Bench press day, we do pause benching for 5x10. Then we do dumbbell chest presses. Squat day, pretty straightforward. He does his squatting, then he does assistance work on the back squat. Accessories are then goblet squat and hanging leg raises. Right, his squat's climbing as a result of it. It's just climbing. Overhead press day, you guys will notice I'm taking a lot of the workout. If you look at the sheet, because again, he's doing well here. His delts are bigger than his pecs at this point. His overhead press is ahead of his bench. So we're de-emphasizing it a little bit to allow a little better recovery in the upper body for the bench days. And like I said, I'm going to really watch this phase for him closely. I'm going to watch it closely. And if I have to, I'll take his press day out and take him to a 3-day. Here's the other thing that we have to think about. Watch on the overhead press. He's bad about, again, he gets excited, no pausing, all touch and go. Well, if you're weak at the bottom of your bench, you're not going to get any carryover because we're not learning to pause and drive out of the bottom of the overhead press, which is where we would get any carryover. And I think that's something that people have to think about too. Keep getting stronger at touch and go overhead pressing, then you want to start doing touch and go benching, and then all of a sudden your bench isn't progressing. All right, so stuff that we have to work on, and this is the stuff that has to be discussed, when you're coaching lifters and clients, the psychology of how we approach these lifts. All right, this is again another reason I don't like people jamming out the music. I don't like the pre-workouts. You lose focus. We lose focus. This is not how we maximize strength. So what does his overhead press day look like? We've reduced the volume on it, and we focus more on the pull-ups, and we focus on tricep work. So in this case, he's doing extensions now with dumbbells. We had been using bands, but again, I want to focus more on getting a deeper stretch. So movements where we can stretch deeper, such as in this case, dumbbell extensions. Why? We got to get strong out of the bottom of that bench. So that's the other reason I need him pausing on all the pressing, stuff that we have to work on so that we can get as strong as possible coming out of the bottom of that bench. Now, deadlift. We're in a good place this week. He ended up pulling, I think, 380 for 8 reps, right, on his main set, right? He's getting a little better at the arm bend, which again is a major concern. We used to have to work on the low back, then the arm bend became a problem. It'll correct sometimes, but then we come back over to if you get excited, you get hyped up, we get more prone to arm bend and things. Because we're not focusing on getting tight and the best technique. We're saying, just whatever can I do to just jerk the weight up, to fling it up. And that's when arm bend starts getting real bad. Okay? And it's again, you're not even going to be stronger when you do it. But it's just the way that we think that, because then I can jerk the weight up. And that's the way your brain works if you get too excited. So again, we've got to keep these things calm. We have to be focused. We have to be in the moment. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.